you have anything on your person is
I
what I'm
have
asking.
nothing on me, to my knowledge, at all.
Zachary Wester, this now ex-cop, was one of the most corrupt cops in police history. He would stop cars for a search and end up planting meth and paraphernalia. One of his victims was Teresa Odom, who he once stopped and searched. Shortly after Wester asked her questions, he asked her to step out of her car, which she complied.
Would you consent to a search of your vehicle? You're fine with that? Okay. All right, you mind stepping out and just hanging out with this deputy right back here?
No, I don't.
She seemed very cooperative and confident as she leaned on the police vehicle until the unexpected happened. She was shown a substance that she knew nothing about, and immediately the substance was confirmed to be illegal.
It did return positive for methamphetamine, okay? I'm just letting you know.
Teresa was arrested. She wasn't the only victim of Zachary Wester. He went on and on until he was sued by motorists for planting drugs on them. That was the start of Wester's downfall. While he was being interrogated, he was asked about the arrests he made and denied ever planting drugs.
Same bag being palmed in your hand that you later put in her purse and acted like you found out of that purse.
Okay, so what you just presented to this jury is absolutely absurd and not factual at all.
On the third day of his trial, it was revealed that he did all that because he wanted to serve in the narcotics unit. But if he had taken the normal route, he wouldn't have ruined his career and life this way.
Therefore, it is the intention of the court that you are sentenced to serve a total of 12 years, 6 months, and 8 days in the Florida Department of Corrections.
Eric DeValkenaer. It was on December 3rd, 2019. DeValkenaer and his partner responded to a traffic incident. A police helicopter had observed a red pickup truck entering a driveway at the back of a home. A black man in his late 20s, Cameron Black, was slowly backing the pickup truck into the basement garage when the officers attempted to tell him to stop. It is unclear if Lamb heard that command or not. Suddenly, DeValkenaer fired 4 times at Lamb, claiming he saw Lamb's left hand reach for a gun and point it at his partner. Soon he was heard saying, he claimed his partner was going to be shot by Lamb, which was why he protected him.
My focus moves from that weapon to the center of his chest. And as I acquired the front side, I discharged around to his center mass.
Eric DeValkenaer was charged with the involuntary manslaughter of Cameron Lamb. During his trial, he claimed he didn't plant evidence in the case.
I'm just going to ask you, did you plant evidence in this case?
No.
And finally, he was sentenced.
Eric DeValkenaer, on count 1, I sentence you to a term of incarceration in the Missouri Division of Adult Institutions of 3 years. On the unclassified felony of armed criminal action, I sentence you to a term of incarceration of 6 years.
Wayne Jenkins. This case was so wild that HBO had to make a series about it. Although it involves 8 police officers, Jenkins was their ringleader. He abused his power in Baltimore and is quite famous for how he oppresses others.
I don't care. This is on camera, dum-dum.
He was never scared to mention his name to his victims anywhere.
I'm Sergeant Wayne Jenkins of the Gun Trace Task Force. I'm Sergeant Wayne Jenkins of the Gun Trace Task Force. Sergeant Wayne Jenkins of Gun Trace Task Force.
Usually, Jenkins used seatbelt violation to initiate a stop that would help him to commit his crimes.
You usually wear your seatbelt?
Yeah.
Is there a reason you didn't have it on today?
I have my seatbelt on.
Sir, do you wear your seatbelt? You don't have your seatbelt on.
He would then use the address on the driver's license or other documents to search innocent motorists' houses without a legal warrant. Jenkins and others took money from the homes they invaded.
Nobody touches you, understand me right now.
I'm keeping the camera rolling.
And even resold the drugs they seized back to society. They also made plans to cover their tracks.
Well, how about we just go on scene and just act like, oh, is everything okay? Yeah. You get what I'm saying?
Jenkins was sentenced to 25 years in prison for several charges, including racketeering and robbery. Roy Oliver. On April 29, 2017, ex-officer Roy Oliver and his partner Officer Gross responded to a house party in the late hours. They began to search the house, which was the party location that involved a group of teenagers, and broke them up. Suddenly, gunshots were fired outside.
I ain't expected to get this tight. Oh!
64 shots fired.
Eyes over here! What'd they do?
The police got out to see the kids running in different directions. Oliver took his gun and headed straight to the scene where he believed the problem came from.
Hey, stop that car! Stop right there! Stop!
Oliver saw a car he believed contained the suspect trying to move away, and he ordered it to stop. Suddenly, he opens fire on the moving vehicle. His shots ended up killing 15-year-old Jordan Edwards. He was charged with the murder and tried. He said he decided to stop the threat at his partner, but his partner, however, testified against him. It appears all he told was a lie, and that his partner was never in danger. He just shot at the passengers of the vehicle for no tangible reason at all. After listening to all said, the judge finally passed the judgment.
Guilty of murder as charged in the indictment.
Daniel Holtzclaw. This officer's case was a bit difficult to solve, as it involved an ex-officer who behaves in two different ways, depending on the time of the day, to Daniel's family. He is a warm-hearted and easygoing fellow. He was a footballer back in high school, but chose to be a cop when he became older. He has a girlfriend who stood by him, and also a family that believes so much in him. But it seems Daniel's cool behavior was just a mask. In June 2018, Daniel was accused of sexual assault, which put him in the interrogation room, not to question anyone, but to be questioned. The victim, named Ginny Liggins, said around 2 a.m. on June 18, 2018, she was pulled over by Daniel, who asked about her license.
Just off work, I'm tired. Get your license taken care of. I cut her loose after that.
But there was more to the information Daniel provided. According to Jenny, Daniel asked her to expose her body.
I'm like, what? You want me to take my pants down? Then he was like, yeah.
But Daniel denied the fact.
Anything. An accidental touch, anything.
If she thought it when I pass searched her, but it was nothing as far as I felt like I would do anything as far as sexual or anything like that.
Aside from Daniel's family, who believes he's telling the truth, his colleague also believes he wouldn't assault anyone sexually because of the impression they have about the ex-officer. But the detective was not buying it. Investigators had to search the women that were stopped by Daniel in the past, and they found similarities. They are all black women, and they mostly have a record of prostitution and drug abuse. The investigators reached out to them, and that gave most of them the courage to speak out. One of the victims, Alex, also gave her side of the story.
He started doing things that he shouldn't be doing.
Daniel's uniform was collected so it could be tested to see if Jenny left her DNA on him. Ever since he was taken in, Daniel refused to say a word, but agreed to talk to 2020 ABC. In the conversation, Daniel denied the allegations.
Ever raped any of those women?
Absolutely.
Have you ever sexually assaulted any woman?
I've never sexually assaulted anyone.
Soon, the result of the DNA was out, and a female DNA was found on his pants. Surprisingly, it was not Jenny's DNA, and not his girlfriend's DNA, but an unknown female. At that moment, detectives were starting to believe that Jenny isn't his only victim, and that he seemed to plan a continuation of this crime. Daniel's attorney had argued that the women testifying against his client do not have credibility because of their past, but Jenny is different from the rest. She has 4 children and 12 grandchildren. Not only was she angry, but her entire family was in support of bringing justice to Daniel. And finally, they were able to locate the owner of the DNA. Turned out she was a 17-year-old girl that was also assaulted by Daniel before Jenny, according to the girl. The detective took her swab and her DNA matched the one found on Daniel's pants. After enough evidence, the judge read his sentence out to him even though he maintained his innocence.
He is guilty of the crime of sexual battery and set punishment at 8 years. Defendant is guilty of the crime of procuring lewd exhibition and punishment is set at 5 years.
David Lance. A 38-year-old South Carolina police officer was caught on his body cam and also on body cam of his colleagues assaulting a 58-year-old man named Clarence Gaillard and his cousin Julian DeMario. On July 26, 2021, both Clarence and DeMario were walking home when Lance and other police officers responded to reports that someone was with a gun nearby. Lance and others approached them with guns and ordered Clarence and his cousin to get on the ground.
There's a gun behind me. There's a gun, I believe, behind me. I ain't got no gun.
Clarence, who was hindered by previous leg and hip injuries, took longer to get on the ground as instructed. Lance did not seem to like that Clarence took much time to obey him. He moved closer to him, cuffed his hands, then stomped on his head while he was on the ground, resulting in an injury. The other officers didn't seem that aggressive as they gently searched DeMario.
Turn around, let me pat you down, okay? Alright. What's going on? Do you know what's going on?
The other officers looked confused, and Lance found out he did wrong. He tried to justify his actions, but it was too late already.
Alright, that's what he had. I thought it was a gun at first. I said, drop the gun, drop the gun, drop the gun, drop the gun. Had him a gun point.
He was fired, arrested, and charged with first-degree assault and battery. Brandon Boone. Boone was a Winter Haven police officer who also abused his power by breaking an inmate's leg. The inmate, Ronald Augustine, was stopped by a Winter Haven K-9 officer after midnight without lights because he was driving without lights. But while the officer was talking to Augustine, he smelled weed and asked for his consent to search the vehicle, which Augustine consented. Soon, officers found marijuana in his car and also a stolen gun. Augustine was arrested and put in police custody, but while in custody, his arrest would lead to Boone's arrest. Surveillance video showed Boone striking Augustine in his leg with his knee just before he escorted Augustine into the holding cell with his hands cuffed to the back.
He broke Ronald Augustine's leg while in custody back in June inside a dark holding cell.
I don't know Ronald, never met him prior to this day. I don't wish anything bad to happen to him. It was just a crazy situation. His leg turned the wrong way, bent the wrong way, and ended up broke. I in no way meant for any of that to happen at all.
That assault made Augustine suffer a spiral fracture, an injury caused by twisting motion.
They broke my femur bone in my leg. Punched me, hit me in my mouth, all type of stuff.
Brandon Boone was arrested after the chief of police said he broke Ronald Augustine's leg while he was in custody at the Winter Haven Police Department. After court, Boone showed his discontent towards his boss.
Charlie Bird's a coward, and he threw me under the bus. Law enforcement's hard enough nowadays, and whenever your chief doesn't support you and doesn't back you up, that's a problem.